Lydia, what's going on?
Hey, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm good.
I bet you're doing good because you got that ACT score back.
I
You
know, I was so
rocked it out.
excited.
I love, love, love seeing that. And I'm really glad that, we could jump on here tonight because, what I found is that students put in like all this hard work, right?
Yeah,
And you're grinding and you're working and you're putting in all the time and effort. And you know what? The least we can do is get on afterwards and be like, yeah, let's pop some champagne and say, yes, mission accomplished.
yeah,
You did it. So I'm just super pumped to kind of just recap your journey because when I was talking with you and your mom, can you fill us in just like one more time about like where you were previous before we kind of started working together?
yeah. So I remember like I had taken it my junior year, which was like seemed like forever ago. So I hadn't even started preparing. And then when I found out I had a scholarship opportunity, and
Yeah.
I realized I was within range of 3 points, but I only had 2 weeks to prepare. I was kind of freaking out a little bit, and I didn't know if that was even possible for me. So I was really glad when we met and you were able to really boost my confidence a lot.
Yeah, well, we definitely talked and it was like, hey, I got to get this score up from, I think you had a 26, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
And we needed to get it up to a 29, right?
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you and your mom, and you were like, yeah, I only got 2 weeks. Like, is this even possible? And I was like, yeah, we can totally do it. We just got to focus in on the right area. What was
Yeah.
that right area for you based on this last score?
Definitely English. Everything else was a little bit rough, but yeah, English. And then surprisingly, my math went up a little bit,
Yep.
which I was not expecting, but that was a nice surprise. But
Yeah.
yeah, for sure, English.
And to see that go up to a 35, I can't remember. What did you have before? Do you remember?
I think I had a 27 maybe.
Yeah. So look at
So
that. An
yeah,
8 point jump in English, right?
yeah,
That is absolutely incredible. And when a lot of people are trying to get those score jumps, sometimes they try to like work in every area. And I'm like, guys, we
yeah.
need to go ahead and focus on this like one area because
Mhm.
you can probably tell us a little bit more, but was it just working those like 8 to 10 different rules kind of like over and over
Yeah.
again? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just like in my brain, some answers sounded right. And I was like, oh, like this sounds right. But like you showed me, like you have to give them what they want. And
Yeah.
just because it sounds right to me does not mean that it's the right answer. So I think
Yeah.
like figuring out what they want is like the key for English.
For sure. There's only one correct answer. And if
Yes,
you can go
exactly.
through and eliminate those things, was that cross out method like helpful almost psychologically to be like, okay, I
Yeah.
can get it down to one. I'm going
Uh-huh.
to do awesome. Right.
Yeah, that was helpful. And time management was another thing for me. Like I kind of went too fast because it's like the pressure you see, like, oh, I only have this amount of time and I have like 75 questions. Like that's crazy. But you have more time than you think, especially when you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you know kind of the inner workings of the test, whether it's English or math or science, once you know that, it kind of gives you that piece coming into the test. You're like,
Yeah.
I've seen this before. I kind of know what speed I need to work at. And you know, when you think about what you were kind of missing, Lydia,
Uh-huh.
maybe that you didn't have when you were getting the 26, but then, you end up getting the 29. What do you think that was? What were some of those barriers that you overcame?
I think confidence was a big one. Like I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing and I have this amount of time. And that was like stressful. And I put a lot of pressure on myself. So I had to remember like, just breathe. It's okay. It's just a test. I'm gonna do the best I can. And if I get the score, that's great. And if not, that's okay too. So I
Yeah.
think that was my biggest thing.
Yeah, it's so important to remind yourself that this score is not your identity, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, if you get a 24, oh, that's just, my value as a human being. And like, there's
Yeah.
nothing about this test that is identifying who you are. But you know what? As you get more and more confident and you actually look at what the components are and you actually implement a lot of those strategies, did you find that when you were kind of going back through your tests, being able to diagnose some of those mistakes on your own, was that helpful?
Yeah, it was definitely helpful because I could see like, especially in English, which rules that I kept missing
Mm-hmm.
and which ones I needed like really like if I saw on that actual test, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna let this one
Yeah.
mess me up. So
Yeah.
that was a big thing.
For sure. For sure. And, whether I'm working with you or somebody else, like I really kind of tie everything to kind of three main things, right? It was that commitment of just saying, yep, I'm going hard at this thing. Like I signed up, I'm going to give
Yeah.
this my all. Got to learn those fundamentals, which paid
Mm-hmm.
off in spades for you on that English section.
Yeah.
And then finally just challenging yourself, saying like, I'm going to keep growing. I'm going to keep learning. Right.
Yeah.
So, as you were kind of recapping this whole journey, I bet there's some people out there, some other students out there that are like, you know what, there's no way that I can get my score up from a 24 to a 29 or even higher. What
Yeah.
would be your recommendation for them?
I think like the practice tests were like huge for me. Like I feel like I was doing those all the time, but it really paid off because like by the time I actually had the test, I was like, oh my goodness, I've seen this so many times. Like this is nothing new. This is just normal at this point,
Yeah.
at least for the 2 weeks that I was like cramming. So
You did a lot of tests in 2 weeks, but I
yeah,
think that this shows that if you are working and saying, you know what, if this is important to me, it's not just about the time that you were spending with me. It was actually you kind of working through the learning portal saying, hey, I know I got to take this test. I know I got to grade it. I know I got to diagnose my errors on my own. And then maybe check out that solution video if you were
oh
confused,
yeah, those were very helpful.
right?
I like the solution videos and working with you, like just like helping me figure out what was going wrong and being able to
Mhm.
fix those was helpful. Like just talking through them was good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of why I created it the way that I did to say, hey, you know
Mhm.
what? We do need kind of an asynchronous learning portal where you, Lydia, can kind of say, all right, like I'm carving out time. Let me work through this thing. But you know
Yeah,
what? The live lessons as well. I think you probably figured it out. Like the mindset that you have plays such a big piece in
yeah.
how you perform, right? Your
Hmm.
mindset skills lead to your actual skills on the test, right? You
Yeah,
can know all that stuff, but if you felt like there's no way you could get a 35 on the English section, you probably
yeah,
wouldn't have done it, but you proved
yeah.
that to yourself in practice, right?
Uh-huh. Definitely a mind thing. You have to believe in yourself before you can actually do it, which was huge.
Yeah. And I'm just so incredibly proud of you because
Thank
you came
you.
in and you were kind of had your back against the wall, but you're like, you know what? I'm gonna push through this thing. I'm gonna knock
Yeah.
it out. And I'm sure there were some like late nights there where maybe you were
Oh
taking
yeah.
the test and maybe you didn't want to, or maybe it was
Hmm.
just frustrating. Can you speak to that at all about, having that discipline and commitment to just keep going when things aren't maybe clicking right away?
Yeah, I think there were so many practice tests where it's like, oh my goodness, that was not the score that I wanted because I know we focused on English and science. And I don't think in any of my practice tests that I got an actual 35 on my English. So
Mm-hmm.
it was like kind of discouraging, like, oh my goodness, I'm not getting the score that I need. But that doesn't mean that like you're not going to get on the test day.
Yeah,
Just the practice that's there. And like you just have to keep doing them because the more you're familiar with the questions, the easier it's going to be when you have the
for
real
sure.
one.
Yeah, and that's a hard road for a lot of students to walk, right? Where
Yeah.
maybe you get a 32 and on the next one you get a 29 and on the next one you get a 33 and on the next one you're
Yeah.
you're zeroing in, but it is a little bit of a roller coaster ride.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of
Exactly.
the times people have trouble with that. Um,
Mhm.
the one thing that I just kept reminding you about was it's not a question of if, it's a question of when,
Yeah.
right? You're going to hit
Uh-huh.
that score. It's just like, when are we going to get there? And so,
Yeah.
yeah, taking the amount of practice tests you did, we just kept finding the gaps, right? We kept
Mhm.
finding where we didn't have maybe our skills mastered to the point where we were like, oh, I'm never going to miss this again, right?
Yeah.
Can you answer one more question for me?
Mhm.
Um, does the ACT try to trap you if you're not aware of it?
Yes. I found myself answering like even on the first couple practice tests, there was like so many questions like, oh my goodness, I missed this on the last one. Like I cannot let the ACT get me on the next one. And so like you really become aware of where you kind of fall into those traps and then you
Yeah.
just don't do it again. And then you slowly start to see that improvement with those specific questions.
Yeah. And you know what? It might not be the second time that it comes up that you get it or the third or the
Yeah.
fourth, but you
I know
probably get a
I'm one a couple
little frustrated with yourself by that point. You're like,
Mhm.
I'm tired of missing this one, like no more. Right.
Yeah.
And that's really when I see students just hit those epic scores, just like you did, Lydia, when it's like you have that never again moment. or
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of getting a 32. Like I'm gonna go get a 35 because I know I can.
Yeah.
That those changes happen, but it's a process. You have to evolve to that point and put
Hmm.
the work in, watch the videos, and then implement, right?
Yeah.
That's just like one of the things that I always coach any of my students on, whether it's ACT or just math. If you just are watching content but not implementing it, you're not
Yeah.
making the mistakes, right? You got to fail your way to that success. And that's usually a tough thing to do. So
Yeah.
again, Lydia, I'm just so proud of you. I hope you
Thank you.
and your parents were definitely able to go have some fun and get a dinner and like celebrate that because you put in a ton of work. And I'm just super proud of you. So congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to help me and working through those problems with me. It
You're
really
welcome.
paid off and helped a lot.